Welcome to the Marvelous Middle Age Podcast, where we are building a community of people who are in the midst of midlife, sharing our stories and learning from each other along the way. Each week, I'll have a guest join me to discuss a topic that impacts our lives and touches on some aspect of midlife. We'll discuss relationships, transitions, health and well-being, parenting, careers, and more. My goal is to encourage and support you and help you thrive as you navigate this adventure of midlife. Join me here each week for the Marvelous Middle Age Podcast. This week on the Marvelous Middle Age Podcast, I'm speaking with Lindsay Leahy. Lindsay is a proud wife, daughter, auntie, and friend. She is passionate about Jesus, hugs, dreams, adventures, and writing. She is the author of the blog Grit, Gratitude, and Grace, and founder of the Restoration Project. In this episode, Lindsay shares more about her new book, Take It All Apart: How to Live, Lead, and Work with Intention. She discusses why she decided to write the book and how her faith and support of her family, friends, and colleagues were instrumental in the book coming to life. I'm giving away a copy of Lindsay's book. Be sure to stay tuned to find out how you can win a copy of Take It All Apart: How to Live, Lead, and Work with Intention. Lindsay Leahy, welcome to the Marvelous Middle Age Podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited. We have already had a great conversation, and I just decided to hit record because I'm like, we've got to get some of this on recorded. And I didn't want to say video, but we need to get it on audio for sure. This is just audio, no video happening here. Thank goodness, right? No video for me. I'm not there yet. I'm just not there yet. Maybe someday, but
you
not
do
right
have this beautiful space, though.
I know.
Look good on video.
I feel like I could absolutely do video in here. It would look great. I just don't know if I want the pressure, of having to be all coiffed and make-upped and glammed. And
I felt better not having to be all those things coming here.
No,
Thank you.
No time for that. We got too many other things to do, right? Well, I am so excited that you are here. I know we're going to have a great conversation today. I don't think we're going to have a hard time doing that at all. But before we get into that, could you just take a moment to introduce yourself to the listeners, just share about who you are, about your family, and what you do?
Sure. Thank you again for having me. It's been so fun getting to know you. So I would say first, and I know that this is something we have in common, that I am a Jesus lover. That is the main, probably biggest, most important part of my identity. And then I name wife, auntie, daughter, and friend second. So my husband and I have been married, just celebrated 8 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. And we don't have any kids or pets, but we love to love the other people that are close to us. And we've got 4 nieces that we love to spoil and then give back to their parents. So
yes.
That's fun.
Beautiful arrangement. I love that.
Yes. And then in my day job, I'm the founder and dream builder at the Restoration Project and have an amazing team. And we get to coach and consult with organizations a lot here locally, but even regionally and nationally now. So that's so fun.
That's awesome. I love that. I absolutely love it. Well, we met actually when you co-facilitated a retreat that you did for my sister and her business partner. And that was a while ago. And then I was very blessed to be reintroduced to you through Riley Mullane. Shout out to Riley.
Shout out Riley.
Yay, Riley Mullane. And I was talking with him about this upcoming, season. And he said, I know who you need to talk to. And that's how we got connected again. I know that was very kind of him. So thanks to Riley. We are here today.
And that was a special retreat.
It was.
Amazing space, good people. We got deep.
Yeah.
There were tears.
We all bawled.
There were
we
laughs.
Cried. Everybody cried, I think, at least once, if not more than that. I don't know if we even had enough Kleenexes to go around. That's how you know it's a good retreat, right? Yes. When you have people fill out a survey. I cried 10 times. That's why it was
hopefully
awesome.
For some people, that's a good retreat. But you guys, it was so fun to just connect the work that you do every day that I'm sure can get mundane to the meaning and the humanity behind all of it. Yeah. That was so neat.
It was so much fun. I absolutely loved it. And I love doing things like that. I just love going a little deeper. So the opportunity to get to do that with you was just the best. It was absolutely the best.
you.
You mentioned the Restoration Project. For those listeners that aren't familiar, and we will link in the show notes to the website, but can you share a little more about the Restoration Project and the work that you and your wonderful team do?
Yes. So at a high level, we create services and experiences for people to dig into and better understand their identity and their intentions, whether that's at an individual level, a team level, or an organizational level. So for a lot of individuals, we were talking, life happens to us, and a lot of us don't have a level of awareness around why we're making the choices we're making, how our lived experiences have informed our leadership style, things like that. So we love to create good questions and safe space for people to explore some of that so they can live and lead a little more intentionally. And then at a bigger organizational level, it's really understanding what an organization's strategy is and what their culture and values are, and how do we bring that together and allow them to live that out in their everyday.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I think that is such important work to do that I don't know if organizations and individuals too, for that matter, always stop and think about how critical and important that is. Whatever industry you're in, whatever your background might be, to pause and say, wow, okay, what are we doing? Are we doing it the way we know we should be doing it? Are we, inflicting harm on ourselves because there are things we could be doing that we're not doing with our people? How are our people responding to that? Taking a step back as a leader and kind of doing a little self-reflection on your leadership style. And wow, I love it. I'm so glad you guys are out there doing that work.
Thank you.
Important.
The hardest part of it is role modeling it every day. When the worst part about being in this coaching and consulting space is that we have to actually walk the walk. And that is the hardest part. But it's been neat to just be challenged for us. We really wanted to live a good life alongside of building a good business, and have had so many deep conversations about what that looks like, what that doesn't look like. And had to pivot and try again and stop doing some things and start doing some new things and find different rhythms and ways of working that allow for us to put first things first, but still get the work done. And it's so interesting when we work with and talk to any organization. There was an old way of working. There's a new desired way of working. And then there's still all this work to get done in the middle. Yeah. And we're having a hard time navigating that conversation. So it's been fun to be invited into spaces where we can just share, and say, frankly, what is first and what we're willing to do and not willing to do, and what that means for the work to get done, and how we find some creative new ways to do it.
I love that. You talked about things that people can stop doing. And I think in a lot of those situations, you've got people saying, well, we need to do this. So we need to start this, and we're going to do this new innovative thing over here and go over here. But you've also got it. Something has to give too. So it's, what do we stop? Whether that be certain work streams or behaviors or practices or whatever that might be. And I don't think a lot of leaders take time to say, what do we need to stop? Because that seems counterintuitive to being an achieving, goal-driven organization. And I think sometimes that can be one of the more important questions to ask.
Yes. Well, and even inside our team, it's been so freeing. I'm the dream builder, so I have a lot of ideas. I'm not the one that initiates the stop doing list.
Yeah.
But Sarah and Brooke, I get to bring the ideas to the table, and they help determine if we're going to do them and when we're going to do them. And then what are those things that we're going to have to stop doing to make space for that. So even just creating a dynamic where we can all understand what each other's gifts are and allow us all to speak into that, to the final product, has been really helpful and healthy. And we've redefined success in 1,000 ways. It's not we have people speaking into our business all the time. Well, you should be doing this, or you should be doing that, or you should be charging more for your services. And it's been nice to have a space where all of us are so aligned. We can come back and say, what does this really mean for us? And how do we intentionally move forward so we feel in our integrity and can maintain the mission that we set out.
Right. What you want to do. You talked about the three of you having kind of different roles within all of that too. And I think a lot of organizations think everybody has to be doing all the things and all of that. And I think that can really hold organizations back a lot. So I love that you've each said, these are the gifts I have. This is what I bring to the table. I'm going to stay in that lane. You over here, these are your gifts and that's your lane. And then you all collaborate, I'm sure, and talk through and process everything, but you don't have to step all over each other to get there. Like, and then again, it probably never goes perfectly every time. I mean, except for you.
The early days were very ugly. I'll tell you that.
Hey,
thank God that Sarah and Brooke have the patience of saints and hung in there with me.
They were like, we're not giving up. We're going to do this no matter what. I love that. I love it. Well, it sounds like the work that you're doing is not only incredibly necessary, but just so impactful and powerful. So thank you for sharing that. Like I said, I'll put a link in the show notes to the Restoration Project. If you are in an organization, leading an organization, check it out. I can tell you from personal experience, it's incredible work you're all doing. So thank you very much for sharing that. So I really, really want to talk about your book. I really want to get into it. But before we get into it, so Lindsay has written a book called Take It All Apart. And I was sharing with her before we started recording. I'm going to share this because it's exactly what's happening. You've been sharing different pieces on your Instagram, and I'm following along. And I said, I'm getting whiplash from nodding my head up and down so hard because everything you're sharing, I'm like, I need to get my hands on this book. This book is going to be transformative for people. And you very generously gifted me a copy of your book today. So
first one outside the team. Nicole is special.
I feel so
you are so special.
I can't wait. I cannot wait. Like literally, I'm like, okay, I got, what would I have on my calendar tonight?
Okay.
Nothing. Okay. So that means I'm going to be sitting in the bed with the readers on reading this book tonight.
So
That's what I'm doing tonight.
Thank you.
And we are going to do a fun giveaway soon. So everybody keep posted for that because we are going to do a giveaway for your book in the future. But I would love to take a step back. As much as I want to get into the book and talk about the book, what happened? Was there anything that happened, or what started this journey of becoming an author for you? Can you share a little bit about that?
Well, I'll take you all the way back to childhood because through some of the things I experienced in childhood, I was in therapy, and journaling became such an important part of my healing practice way back then. And then that led into, in high school, being part of the yearbook and part of the student newspaper, and just enjoying the idea of telling stories and finding joy in drawing stories out of people, but also just such a healing practice for me and a way to process what was going on in my life. And a lot of it, I burned because I didn't want people to ever find it or read it.
Well, that's one way to get rid of it, I suppose. But I could see why a person would do that for sure.
And that kind of, in my loneliest moments, I remember opening a journal and writing. And that was really the space probably that I met God most often and did not feel alone. It was almost, for me, I'm very cerebral. I can be very cerebral, and having the pen in my hand was the only way that I could really write straight from my heart, if that makes sense.
Totally. Yeah, for sure.
So then fast forward to, I graduated college, got a job in marketing and was doing, some writing in the professional space. And I had continued to climb the corporate ladder and had a pretty successful career, and then woke up in New York City one day and was like, what am I doing? Is this all there is? Is this what? I have more than I ever could have imagined. I've checked all the boxes culture says I should have checked to be happy, and I am deeply lonely. I am in the most populated city in the world, looking out the window, desperately lonely. Like, this does not make sense. And then, keep going a few years. I job hopped thinking that was going to solve some sort of problem. and then one day I started having dreams about Moses in the desert, my very last corporate job, and came home and told my husband, I think God's calling me to be a pastor or a missionary or something. And he is a very patient, steady, and said, hey, I think you've been running from something for quite some time that you need to explore. And so I had the luxury at the time, we'd saved well and quit my job and took 90 days to explore what I felt like God was calling me to. And that was when the Restoration Project was born. And then a couple years later, this publishing company, Greenleaf, shout out Greenleaf, book group down in Austin, they had reached out to publish they wanted to publish some of my blog posts. So I have a blog called Grit, Gratitude, and Grace.
Awesome.
And they wanted to publish a series of blog posts. And I had this other idea, which is really our individual coaching practice, put into book form. So to help people rebuild connection, restore intention, and then build an action plan to live a more intentional life.
Wow. I love that. Well, thank you for sharing that. First of all, because I did not know that was your story. And it's amazing how out of some really challenging circumstances, some of the most beautiful things can be born out of that. And so it obviously, you said you were journaling as a young person. It's been building up to this point now where you have this amazing book that is coming out. So
it was wild to open it this morning and like flip through the pages. Whoa, this is, I wrote 300 pages of a book. This is insane.
Awesome. That is awesome. Well, speaking of that, because I just am fascinated by the process. Could you take a moment just to kind of share what your experience was like writing the book? Like, what was it cathartic? Were you ever, deleting everything and starting over? Like what was your process for writing the book and anything that was interesting about that you would want to share?
Thank you for asking. The book writing process was one of the hardest things I've ever done. So I was lucky that Greenleaf assigned me a manuscript development editor from the beginning. So she really served as almost a coach to help me outline and draw my ideas and frame up the book. And then through the writing process, tried to help me find what worked for me. So early on, she was encouraging me, just put snippets of windows on the calendar every day and try to write every day. And I kept starting over. I couldn't make progress. So then I learned for me, what I needed to do was block out a day or two, get in the zone, write a whole chunk of the book. And then, so I got it all down in very rough draft. And then I went back through and reread it and refined it, and then handed it over to 6 other levels of editing. When I saw all the red lines coming back, I'm like, this sucks. I'm never going to get it in the world. I'm throwing it out the window.
The burning, right? The burning. I'm going to burn this. Yes. This is going in the dumpster.
You think
fire.
You're a good writer? And they even kept telling me, you're such a good writer. And I'm like, then why are there so many red marks on this page?
It's not supposed to be this red. Yes. What's happening?
But it's just kind of like coaching. It was a good reminder for me. And my business coach often shares with me things that I just shared with somebody else that I can't even see in my own life. And so it was the same in my writing. It was so wonderful and beautiful to have a handful of other people read the book and share like, hey, this didn't make sense to me when you said this, so I could make it more accessible and understandable for a wider audience, and just a better book in the end.
Right. A better product at the end of the day. Yeah. And exactly. And I think that getting that kind of feedback for something that was probably felt so personal, was probably also I could imagine. I'm just I take everything really personally. I know not everybody does, but like I could be like, oh, I don't like it. There's all this red on it, but I think you just have to say, no, these are professional, writers and editors and people who have done this with other people. And they're not asking you to throw it out. They're asking you to just explain this a little bit over here, or maybe flesh this idea out over here, and you're good. You're good to go. And I bet that last draft, when they said it was done, did you do a happy dance? Or
I just this huge weight lifted.
Yeah.
But then the terror of this actually getting in the world set in.
So you're going to print this?
Can I tell you a story?
Yes,
Sarah's in the room. God bless her.
Yes.
She really freed me and did me a solid. Early on, I gave the manuscript in its draft form to just a handful of really close friends, and Sarah was one of them. And when I handed it to her, she said, I'm going to read it, but I'm not going to tell you what I think about it. And that's how she said it. And I was like, my little heart, we were talking about my tender 8 little heart inside this hard shell was like,
Enneagram 8s have tender hearts.
I'm devastated.
why? But why?
But so we kind of let it go, and I was sad about it. And the next day I talked to her a little bit about it, and she said, Linz, it doesn't matter what I think or what anyone else thinks. Mm-mm. This is between you and God. It always has been, and it always will be. And that something shift. I mean, I've still been scared to have people read it, and because there are some personal stories in there, and some people are going to hate it, and that's okay. But that really gave me a lot of peace at a different level in a space when toward the end I was seeking a lot of validation for what I had written, and I needed to free myself or have somebody free me of that.
What a gift.
So thank you, Sarah.
That is a gift, honestly, because yes, I mean, your first thought is you want to know, right? What is it? Tell me your opinion. What should I have written differently? How should I have done this way or that way? And just knowing that some people are going to read it and love it. And some, like you said, some people may read it and it's not their favorite. And then there's everything in between, but she's exactly right. It's between you and God, and it's something that came from your heart, and it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. But like I said, I'm just so excited to read it because everything I've read so far that you've been given some little sneak peeks, I've been like, oh yeah, okay, this is it. This is speaking to me in a big way. So I think,
thank you.
I don't know, I just have a feeling there's going to be a lot of people that are going to love this book.
Thank you. Well, I hope just to put the caveat out there, and I say this in the introduction, it's not a book of answers. It's a book of questions. So just like when people come to our workshops, you've got to be ready to do your own work. If you think you're going to read this book and have a recipe because I really believe each of us are called to live and walk this whole life differently. And the questions and the frameworks in here are really for you to find your way, not to find a way. And that is not all of us like that, because we all want the silver bullet or the right way.
The top 10 things for a happy life.
I don't like those kind of books. And this is the opposite of that kind of book.
No, I love that, because I also think when I see the top 10 things for a happy life, they may not be things that are actually doable or apply or have any kind of resemblance to any kind of life I might be leading. So I would rather have someone put something to me in that questioning way to help me kind of guide me along my own path of doing that, as opposed to saying, I know it all and I'm going to tell you. And then, by God, if you don't do it, well, then you're a loser. No, this sounds like I'm going to share my perspective or my stories, and then as a guide, kind of guide you through that solution seeking, answer seeking process for yourself. And I love that. I would much rather read a book like that. So
good.
Another reason I'm excited to get my hands into this book, because I cannot wait. In this season of the podcast, we're focusing on people who are just kind of doing some really neat, cool things or experiencing change or transformation. If there's someone out there listening that has maybe had it in their heart to write a book someday. So they're sitting out there going, gosh, I'd really love to do this. I don't really know if I could do it. We were talking a little bit at the beginning about how I started my podcast, and it was just this weird story. But is there anything you would say to someone if they came up to you and said, I've had it on my heart for a few years. I think there's a book somewhere inside my story. Any encouragement, or maybe say, no, I'm kidding. I know you're not going to say that, but is there any encouragement you would have for them, or advice or support or guidance that you would encourage them to consider?
Well, when you asked that question specifically related to the book, it did remind me of your story and how I shared with you that part of why I love listening to your podcast is you're doing it your way, in a way that's authentic to you. And so I think when people say, I want to write a book, my first question will be, well, why do you want to write a book? And if it's to make money, you're going to go about that differently than if it's because you have this idea you want to share and you don't care if it sells one copy, So really thinking through, what are my intentions around this idea? That's going to inform the process by which you bring it into the world, and kind of how you go from idea to execution a lot differently. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes complete sense. Absolutely.
But if you feel called, you just got to do it. Because I see so often, and I'm sure you experience this too, with business owners, just people who have ideas, we seek the process instead of just getting started. And if it's a call, like I didn't know when we started the restoration project what it was going to be. I just started sharing some ideas and having coffee with people and offering, hey, here's some ways I think that we could help. And that's how the whole business grew. I didn't have a formal business plan, but I knew that if we just kept taking steps and doing things and learning from it, that eventually we would build the right strategy and systems and structure. But so often the pressure is, you got to have this formal business plan. And I just don't, if it's a calling, that's not, you don't need that. Now, if you're trying to make money and that's your only avenue,
right,
you better have a business plan or it's probably not going to go very well.
Right. You would want to have a little more behind the process and the idea than that. I completely agree. And I think you had shared earlier too, I don't know if it was we were recording or not, but that there's been many iterations, right, of the restoration project and things you guys have tried and that worked and some things you tried that didn't work. And I think I think people get so freaked out by, I have to do it. And if it doesn't immediately produce results or work, or there's not a finished product at the end of it, then it was a failure. And people are afraid to take that first step and just put it out into the world. Do something, write a blog post, put a podcast episode out there. It may be awful.
Yep.
It may be absolutely awful.
I've had a lot of those.
And yeah, same. And you will look back in a few years and go, oh my gosh, that was terrible. But look how I've grown, or look at what else I've done with all of this. And just don't be afraid of that. Of course, seek information and guidance and, support from people and feedback and stuff, but just do it.
Yes. And use your heart as the guide, because I know early on I had well-meaning mentors that were trying to speak into what we were trying to build at the restoration project. And the ideas that they were offering were not in alignment with how we wanted to build our practice. And so it just, again, bringing that back into and holding it out in front of you and looking at it. And, for me, praying about, is this what God's calling me to? Is this in alignment with what I'm trying to accomplish or not? It has been so important, because I did that for a long time. They said we should do this, so let's just try it. And that now it's taking it in, looking at it. Does this feel right? And if yes, then let's try it and learn through the process.
Right. Yeah. Right. Thank you for that reminder, because I think that does get lost. I think we look at, quote unquote experts or leaders in the field, and there's nothing wrong with doing that, but that can't be the primary guidepost for us when we're doing things like this. It truly is, am I called to do this? Is this something that's coming from my heart, and whatever, we are believers in Jesus, but if someone has a different belief system or whatever, whatever that is, look at that and say, is this really coming from a place of true calling, or is it just what I think someone wants me to do or is telling me to do? If it's not feeling, intuitively right, then it's probably a no or a reevaluate process that you should go through. So I love that.
Related to transformation and change, I think being patient with, am I ready to take action? I know in seasons like this, I've wanted to do something different, but my body and my spirit and my heart needed just some time to sit. So being patient in the waiting and allowing some things to come together, or you to be prepared at a different level, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, to take advantage of those opportunities, is something I'm still trying to learn, because I'm a perpetual 150 miles an hour, do all the things. And that has not been my path to a fulfilling life. And so recognizing those seasons and, hey, I'm in the thick of it right now, and I just need to stay in the messy middle for a little bit longer and let some of this work itself out, or me get clearer before, because I would jump to action just to try to take some control, Right.
Exactly. And as we know, as believers, that we are not in control.
No.
There's different things going on. And as much as we want to be or think we are at times, that's not kind of the reality for us. And I love that you say that, because I think it gives people permission to say, yes, I have this idea or this goal or this thing that I want to do, but gosh, I've got this laundry list of stuff I'm going through right now, or work is tough, or family things are hard, or my health, or whatever it is. And it's okay to kind of pause and say, let's work out some of the other stuff. Doesn't mean that dream goes anywhere. That can still be there. It can be there when I'm ready. I was talking with someone the other day about starting this podcast, and consistency is important, right? With podcasting. And I had to see this first year. Does my lifestyle that I have, can I sustain doing the work? Because it's not just recording the episodes. There's other things that go into it. I just want to try this for a year and see if I can fit it into my lifestyle that I have. And that was kind of the measuring stick I used this past year to say, gosh, I'm feeling called. God's put it on my heart. There were so many different things along the way. Is it the right time? And it was revealed throughout this year that, it really is working with other things going on. So did you ever kind of go through any of that? Like with the book, did you ever feel at times like you wanted to write it, but then you were like, ooh, no, now's not the right time. And yes, now it is. And it felt right at the time, or was it always just really clear?
God is moving in this podcast because it's amazing you asked that. So, well, first, I will not take credit for understanding this. That Brooke and Sarah have been incredibly instrumental in helping me see that relationships matter, how it feels matters, all these things that I just was so focused on getting it done that I was just not living a whole life, so they've been such gifts in that. And so through this, I signed the contract with Greenleaf back in 2021. And at that time we had 3 other people on our team. We were a team of 6, not just of 3. And then that didn't end up working out. And our emotional capacity that year was very low as we were trying to navigate all of that, and then trying to keep up with client work and just try to stay connected with each other through some of that unraveling. And so I think it was maybe Sarah, somebody on the team gave me permission, like, just, you don't have to do all of this right now. And that was, I'm so grateful, because the client experiences that I had in 22 and 23 informed the book in a different way than it would have. And I was so much different that I wrote the book differently. So the timing, God had his hand in all of that.
That is God saying, it's not no, it's just not now.
Yes.
And wow, that's powerful.
I've never been obedient until these 2 helped me give myself permission.
He puts people in our lives at certain times for certain purposes.
Yeah.
And if we're blessed and, he puts them in there, it's amazing what can happen when that happens. So
if you're willing to listen.
Right.
I know for those first couple of years, I was not willing to listen.
Yeah. Like, nope, you aren't going to tell me. I'm going to do this. Gosh, darn it. Yeah. No. But I think that's our tendency, right? We're just going to push through. We're going to plow through everything. We're going to do it because that's what we're kind of born and told to do. Like, you've got to accomplish, right? And it sounds like to me, because you waited, this book crafted and was developed into something different than it would have been. And, it's we can't know if it was better, but I'm guessing from what you're saying that the experiences you were having in those years leading up to, it's turned out better.
Well, and the other wild part about the timing is I finished it, I can't remember if it was December or January of, 23, 24. And then my mother-in-law passed away, and Brooke had a major health incident. Sarah had some stuff going on. My mother-in-law passed away, all within a few months. And so the concepts in this book, I kept coming back to, right? Because it's an opportunity to reset and so it also saved me. So in a lot of ways, I wrote this book for the younger version of me, to help other people learn these lessons that it's taken me until 40, which is not, I know that I have a lot of life left to live, but some of these things that I wish I would have known sooner so that my relationships in my life could have been healthier and more fulfilling.
For sure. Well, without giving it all the way, because I want people to go out and get this book, what are some of those things? If you could maybe give listeners just a little sneak peek, if you wouldn't mind, maybe just sharing something out of the book, a nugget, something that will encourage us a little bit.
Well, I think it's broken into 3 parts, like I mentioned. So part 1 is rebuilding connection with yourself and others. Part 2 is restoring your intention. So there's a lot of questions in there about how you're living and what you desire and what you're passionate about that are to draw out your intentions, but also your unique gifts, those parts of your identity that are unique to you. And then part 3 is all practical application. Okay, well, now that I know these things, how do I pull it all together into a plan and live and lead and work more intentionally? So in part 1, it's the hardest part of the book because it's about creating space for you to reconnect your head, your heart, your body, to remember who you are, and to, there's challenging questions in there that we ask our coaching clients early on, like what does a good life look and feel like for me? And what's meaningful and valuable to me? And I know, especially for women, we're so focused on other people that people get really uncomfortable with silence and solitude. But then on top of that, asking them to look inside their own heart and be able to speak those things out loud. That if you can get through part 1, you're going to be good the rest of the way.
You're good. Okay. All right, readers. Part 1, we can do this. When I finish part 1, I'll message you and I'll be like, I did it.
I can't wait to hear.
I'm in the process. I'm in process. I'm doing it.
Because part 2 is fun. Then it's all about your dreams and your desires and,
Right.
But that's the part we always skip over, and why in leadership, we've really been determined to help people dig deeper, because we can layer on skills, but if you don't know who you are and what you really want and how you're wired, then you can hurt, and I've been there, you can hurt people by the way that you lead and what you're trying to do, whether that's in your family, your organization, or your community.
Right. And it sounds like what you're saying is this book, these things can be applied to a personal, family, any other relationship dynamic, to a work dynamic, to any area of your life. So I'm excited to read it. Thank you so much. Again, I feel honored. I'm so honored that I got this copy.
It was fun to hand it to you. My little baby coming into the world.
I love it. I love it so much. I love it. Well, this has been so fun.
Yes,
we could probably talk all day, but you probably have other things to do. I just want to encourage everyone. I will link in the show notes where folks can get their hands on the book. More to come on the giveaway, so stay tuned for that. But I just want to just honor and just express my gratitude for you being on the podcast. This has been a great conversation, and looking forward to just continuing to get to know you. And again, like I said, this will be my plan for the evening is reading this book. So I'm super excited.
Thank you for having me. And thank you for following your dreams on this podcast. We were talking before about how important this conversation is, and just middle age is something to be proud of and be excited about. And there's still so much life to live. So thank you for creating that space for all of us.
You bet. Lots of cool things to come for sure. Thanks a lot. Isn't Lindsay amazing? If you'd like to win a signed copy of Lindsay's book, Take It All Apart, take a screenshot of your podcast app as you're listening to this episode. Share it on Instagram and tag Lindsay and I in your story or post. I'll do a drawing Monday, November 11th to see who wins a copy of the book. If you're enjoying the podcast, please follow the show to make sure the latest episode is on your podcast feed each week. I would greatly appreciate a rating and a 5-star review on the podcast platform you're listening on. It helps others to find the show. If there are topics you'd like me to discuss on the show, please email me at themarvelousmiddleagepodcast@gmail.com or direct message me on Instagram at Nicole Stute. Thank you for listening.